Squad Commander Lawrence D. Penguin. Call sign Ramjet. Who painted my plane like this? Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and we're continuing our look at some Generation Selects toys. Next up is one that was purchased for me. I want to give a shout out to my brother, Cyclonus150, for helping to buy this figure for me. And also promote his channel. He does videos of his attendance at conventions. This weekend, he's with me at Matsuricon. So please go over, if you're into Japanese anime, please check out his channel and take a look at the wild times we're having at the convention. But today, we're going to talk Transformers, and next up is Ramjet. Now, of course, Ramjet is a classic character, and we'll give a brief explanation of him, especially for the benefit of newer fans to the Transformer line. Right here is the Generation 1 version of Ramjet. Ramjet came out in 1985. He was again one of the Seekers, which made him one of Starscream's minions. Now, of course, the original figure, and the way his was drawn in the instructions, had his head done up similar to that of Starscream and the others. But in the cartoon, they introduced the idea of making some of them cone heads. That way it allowed the newer figures to differentiate themselves from the older ones. And no way is really the right way or wrong way to display those figures, but I think the fandom more accepts that Ramjet and his buddies Dirge and Thrust are intended to be coneheads. Ramjet is an interesting character due to the fact that he has delusions of invincibility. This comes from the fact that there is a wiring glitch in his head that prevents him from feeling any pain. And when you add to that his nose cone is heavily reinforced, Ramjet likes to go around and ram into things in his plane mode. Now, of course, since this was done in 1985, this was done well before 9/11. So the idea of an airplane deliberately crashing into other aircraft or buildings was somewhat unheard of. So, back then, this bio for him would be acceptable. Nowadays, they would tone it down a bit. But I would imagine they'd still leave the delusion that he's invincible with him, since that is a bit of his character. Because he also has an extreme amount of pride that won't let him admit, even when he is badly beaten up, he will not admit that it was a blow he could not take. Then that brings us to this version of Ramjet, which is done up in his Generation 2 colors. Ramjet was one of the lucky ones to get carried over into Generation 2. And for some reason, they felt the need to radically alter his colors. So instead of him coming over with the white color, he was pretty much painted up almost in the same colors as the Seacons. So he has got some turquoise or aquamarine going with purple and black. But of course, he also had the gimmick of the fact that these long missile tubes were instead replaced with firing missile launchers. Hence why his guns are different colors. This is meant to be the launcher, and the black part is meant to be the missile. Now, of course, the mold for this new Ramjet takes its designs from the Earthrise released Ramjet. Earthrise Ramjet was sold exclusively at Target stores. He was sold in a 2-pack alongside Dirge. At any rate, let's move these Ramjets out of our way. And we shall take a look at this Ramjet. Let's take a look at his loose accessories, and he only has 2, and both of them being his guns. Which apparently, according to the Transformers Wikia, these are both null ray blasters. Which is fine and dandy, but null ray guns were what Starscream exclusively used. But at any rate, they're done at pretty much the same style as all the guns were for the Seekers. It's just painted in 2 colors to again pay homage to the Generation 2 toy. And as we said, he has 2 of them, and there's not really any significant difference between the 2. So now let's take a look at Ramjet's Articulation. And since he shares the mold as many of the other Seekers did, they'll have the same articulation. His head can be turned from side to side. It is a bit of a chore to get your fat fingers between the intakes here. His head's on a small ball joint. It will look up and down, but not very well. His arms can be raised out to the side about so far, and they do rotate at the shoulder all the way. You just have to move it out a bit so that it avoids catching on the airplane wing kibble. His arm can be bent at the elbow 90 degrees, and he does have a swivel at his bicep. So he has G.I. Joe battle grip. Unfortunately, he cannot be turned at his hips, so he does not have any dance moves going for him. Ramjet can have his legs spread out almost into a full splits. He does have a bit of a thigh cut, so you can adjust his legs at the thigh. You can raise his leg up at the hip about 90 degrees, and you can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. So all in all, he has just slightly below standard articulation when compared to a lot of the other Transformers. Okay, let's transform Ramjet. And since he's based on the same style as many of the other Seekers from the Earthrise line, his transformation will be the exact same. Pardon me. We're going to shift his fists out a bit, and then get his forearms to raise up a bit. Then we're going to shift the forearm back and get it to lock in at the bicep. And then you'll fold the forearm cover down, and fold the fist on top. Just exactly like that. Next, we'll reach here on his back, fold up the cockpit, and lock it in over his head. That way we can pop his back free and fold it all down like so. Grab the cockpit section, straighten it out, and rotate it around, and then fold it on down. And it should line up and lock into its hole. Then we'll come back here to his arms and fold the arms in at the shoulder. Then, of course, once you've done that, you can fold the body back up and snap it into place. Turn him around for a second, because we're going to take these pieces here from behind his shoulder, fold them down so they're flush with the body, and then adjust the black pieces to line up against the side of the fuselage, like that. And we're going to come down here to his legs, press his legs together, then open the legs up at the kneecap, fold this on down. So we're going to bend the legs inward, put a little give in up here at the hip too, so that way you can line everything up and snap the legs together to the fuselage. Just like that. Once that's done, you can fold the leg covers back down. Come down here and close both sides of his feet. Then we come up top here and you will fold the wings on down to line up with the upper portion of the wing. And then to complete the look, attach the guns to these holes on the undersides of the wings. And there you have it. Ramjet is in his alternate form. In the Generation 1 era, he was a modified F-15 Eagle. So in many ways, this is still the same thing, just done up a little less F-15. So that way they don't have to pay royalties. And of course, as you can see, as a neat little thing here, they've put the name Ramjet on the side of the plane. Kind of like what we've seen in a lot of the movies, like Top Gun and Independence Day. The planes are marked for their designated pilot. It usually has their name and rank up top, and then beneath it is their call sign. So it's a nice little added detail. And of course, for comparison's sake, here is the Earthrise one to be beside it. So you can see how they look. And of course, for a radical change, over here is the Generation 1 version. So you can see that it does carry some elements of the original toy, just carried over into a new way. So what do we think of this version of Ramjet? Well, it's a mixed bag, folks. I gotta admit to that. I do like the attention to detail that they put into this toy, because while I did not own a Generation 2 Ramjet, I have seen enough pictures to know that they did pay some attention to a lot of the details, especially with the weapons. So that is a nice touch. However, the thing I can't really wrap my head around are these god-awful colors that they painted him in. I know it was the 90s when the toy was originally released, but what were they thinking? These colors did okay for the Seacons, because it helped make them stand out a bit. And when you consider that the Seacons formed the swan song of the combiners from the Generation 1 era, that helped make it stand out a little bit more. On Ramjet, though, they just look ugly. It would have been better if they had retained at least a little bit of the paint scheme from the original toy. Although how they'd make it work with a lot of these ugly colors is beyond me, but oh well. If you were a Generation 2 collector, I don't want to badmouth your toy, because you probably liked this toy in those days. So, if you're looking for a new version of that one, this one is somewhat more readily available. And thanks to it being made from a modern toy, it has considerably less parts to go look for. At any rate, that's my review of the Generation Selects version of G2 Ramjet. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you like the content we feature here on this channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We do appreciate the feedback here. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.